Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's get started with today's things, inshallah. Today we'll actually recap and then talk about services, and we'll get to the definitions of what the dependency injection means, or in short, DI. And this is basically a very concise definition of Angular services, but we'll try to keep on repeating that so that it gets ingrained. And we'll see how to manage states using Angular services, and we'll go over these things, but we'll come to that when it is when they are due, inshallah. So let's recap from yesterday. We created a product component under product module, and we saw how we just go traverse to that path and generate a component over there, and it will get added to the nearest module. And we strongly typed products. Why did we do that? To help in making less errors. I mean, that's one of the common reasons. But yesterday, our aim was very specific to actually use event emitter and type that emit value to the product. So if we hadn't strongly typed that return value to a product, then it would be more error prone, and also I don't know if it was possible in the first place, because there would be no, there would the type would be any, and the consumer of that event would not know what properties exist. I mean, because I'm the developer, I would know. If the developer was a different person, then they would have to actually look as to what is getting returned going to the code, and that is not an ideal way to write code. So once the return type is strongly typed, let me actually open that component over here. So whoever is consuming this event, just by looking at the definition, they will be able to tell that I'll get a product. Either I'll get nothing, but if I get something, that will be of type product, and then just looking at the type product class, they will be able to infer what properties to expect. So these are the properties. I'm just holding the control and then hovering over the word product, then it will display me a definition in a little context window like that. Or if I actually click, it will take me to the file where it is defined. So anyway, we strongly type product for multiple purposes, and one of them was to return a strongly typed instance of that product. We introduced product like count to demonstrate how we can uh, define input and output properties. And we sorted by like count in the product listing page. And after that, we introduced input property, but the main aim was of introducing this like count was demonstration of input property as well as output property. Output, yeah, it's a property or output event. So output or input, let me just get started with ngserve so that we are ready with the compilation of our app. Let's go back to product.html and talk about component.html or component.ts file, and talk a little bit more about the output decorator, or what we are trying to emit, or event handling in general. So product component.ts. So over here we are emitting an event the like count changed after an internal event, handle like clicked. So product displays its UI, and the user, when the user clicks on that link like count or click to like text, we are updating the like count and also emitting that event for the consumers or whoever is interested in to consume. But it doesn't have to be an internal event. It can be just like this. We can have an event outputted init complete, init complete, new event emitter, of type. We don't even need a type for that because all we are just doing is indicating that okay, init is complete. And in the ng on init, which basically means any initialization code will go over here, whatever the code, and then finally we say this dot init complete dot emit. That's it. So whoever wants to know or get notified when the initialization is complete, they will just subscribe to this event or handle this event. So it doesn't have to be an internal event to actually kick off an event emitter. So it can be done like this. And let's look a little bit closer at this input property too. This product dot name or brand, they are not they are not decorated with this input decorator like this. Then how is it possible that we are just able to access it in the template of this component? Because I mean this template and the component, they belong to this component altogether. Or in other words, the class product component and the template, they are bound by the component. So basically they trust each other, or whatever is the property of this class also uh, is public to the template. But in the other case where we are decorating with the input decorator, if we didn't have it, this product property is being set by an external component, not this component itself. That is products component, the product listing component. So that's why uh, this component needs to tell everybody else or other components that this is a public property that you can utilize or you can pass a value in. Anyway, that's a quick recap of input and output properties. And let's get back to today's agenda and talk about services. And before going there, let's set up our navigation bar. And before even that, actually, let's set up our default tool, which is actually set. I thought I didn't have it. Anyway, so when we navigate to our app, it goes to, it's empty. The route is empty. Basically, we are going to the home page, and on home page we are asking it to utilize the home component. Or basically, if the path is empty, then utilize the home component. What if the path is home component itself, or the path is home itself? Basically, it means the same. We are just plugging in plugging in a gap. So home works and the default home page is the same as home. So I just put the app works that is created by the Angular CLI for a component or app navbar works off, and let's have a navigation bar with home. Basically, these will be links. I'm not sure if, I mean, I'm not so good at, I need little bit thinking at HTML and CSS, but let me just try that out. So we'll have a link for home. And basically, the href of that would be home, which refers to our route. So I'm not sure if I need a slash over here. Let me go without slash and see how it looks and see if it works. Otherwise, we'll just come back and fix it. So we need another one, something called product. Products. We don't have a route for product yet. So just let's have these two and see how they look on the browser. They look like as one link. So I'll just introduce a space and VSP. We'll not do anything fancy. We'll just try to make it look discernible. VSP. So we have a little gap and then more login. We don't have this path yet, but we'll just display text for now. Just parallel this one a little bit to appear differently. Style. So that's where I was expecting it to be. I'll just add a div and get everything under a div. Fifty might be too much, but we'll see how it looks like, and then decide if it needs to be changed. It's too big, but it will. I mean, if we decide to add our logo, and then it will be just fine. But it's discernible. We'll not spend a lot of time on that, just to differentiate it. Let's see if I haven't changed the route of product, so it's still showing home. products. Let's see if that actually works. So it did. Normally, a anchor tag or a tag is for sending the user to a different link or a different link within our own website or maybe an external website. For Angular, we just have to with Angular we just have to specify the path of that route. So let's say if we wanted to actually right now it's not the product component is not ready because product component at this point of time expects a product and we haven't configured a route for it yet. And on top of it, it expects a product as an input, which we will not be able to give at this point of time. But if it was configured and we needed to go to the product, we can just say product instead of products. And if it is relative to products path, then we can say right now it is relative because it stays under the product. So for a particular product, we can go using this route. Actually, the configuration would be like this. Route configuration would be like this. We'll get to that in a bit, but just to make a quick note, an actual route would be something like this: product/ID. Okay, now this is taken care of. Let's get into services. Services, like I just mentioned, when we were going over today's agenda, are something reusable and encapsulated functionality. So reusable and encapsulated functionality need not be actually a service, but service will be a reusable and encapsulated functionality. So basically one of the object-oriented principle is encapsulation and reusability of that encapsulation. Basically, that means we wrote a class over here, or this is one of the examples of that. So we encapsulated related properties into a class called product, which is usable or reusable again and again at different places depending on the application's needs. So this is also reusable and encapsulated logic, but the service is especially reusable and encapsulated logic, and actually it provides methods that could be reused across, let's say, components so that they can call and consume what it provides. So instead of dwelling a lot on the definition, let's go ahead and actually create a service and have a look at it in action. So by now, probably you might have guessed how to generate a service. ng generate. Let's create services or our services under a folder called services, and let's name it as user service. So by now you might have noticed I don't have to explicitly give product component. I just gave product and it created a component or dot component for me behind the scenes. I just gave it gc for component and the path where I want that component created and just the name, for example, products and not products component. So it was able to, the Angular CLI was able to infer and add a product because of my command. Similarly over here, ng, g, I need to tell it what I want to generate, what kind. So that is S for service. I want the new service at the path services/user. So my expectation is it should create a service, it should create a folder called services and generate the user service under that folder. Let's see if it does the same using the dry run flag. Yep, it did what I was expecting it to, and now I run without the dry run flag. So our service and its test file or unit testing file is generated. The user service and oops. So right now it doesn't have anything, but let's go over its decorator. So we have, by now you might have already guessed what this injectable is. Angular related stuff mostly is a class plus its decorator. The module was a class app module with its decorator ng module. And decorator will have the metadata related to that particular class or the type of functionality that we want from the class. Over here we want the functionality of a module. So we are decorating with ng module, and this app module is a convention. We don't have to name it as app module. We can name it as we wish depending on our architectural style and naming conventions. But Angular suggests that we name the modules or we suffix the modules with the word module. That's what it did with browser module, forms module, router module, and that's what we are following over here as well. Similarly, component is a class. The convention is to suffix it with component word, and we decorate it with component and component related metadata. Same with service, user service, and the decorator over here is called injectable. Basically, that's telling the framework that this can be injected, or a service, in other words, is a dependency which can be injected. So in other words, Angular is providing a framework where something could be something like a service could be injected to a component or a module. And the normal way of doing it is they get injected in the module itself rather than at the component level. It has its own advantages of getting injected at a module level or application level rather than at a component level, which we'll go over when we get to that point. So right now, this makes it a user as a service or as injectable. Services by default are supposed to be injectable. That's why we are using the Angular uses decorator called injectable. And provided in root is a way of saying that this is available across the application. Angular, prior to Angular 6, this wasn't available, and the way to do it was use this providers array for that user service. So they both mean the same, but provided and in root is a shortcut of, instead of going to the app module or the root module or any feature module that we want this service to be available with, and typing it over there in the providers array, this is kind of a shortcut. So we'll just follow this for now. And what it means now is this service is available across the application. But we have to make a decision on whether this service is relevant across the application. If it is not, then we provide it in the module that it is relevant for. But right now, because it provides some kind of services of a user or maybe current logged in user or the users, that's what I had in mind. That's why I am generating it across the applications, and that will help us over here figuring out the current user. So let's expose a method so that we can consume from this service. So get current user. Normally this would be handled via authentication when the user logs in, and then we go to the database and check if the credentials are just fine. Then we log the user in, return a token, and keep the user logged in. But we'll just mimic that functionality for now. So get user will return something of type user which we haven't defined yet. So for the moment we'll go with any, and we'll define the user and come back and strongly type it. So get user, let's return, before even returning, okay, let's return something null for now, and go back and let's generate the class user. Ng generate class models user. I don't remember it creating a spec or testing file for the product. Oh, it did. I wonder what it contains. This is a class definition. I did not pay attention last time. Okay, anyway, that's good. So user will have most likely an ID of type number and username of type string. So most likely it will have more than that, but we'll just suffice these with these two for now. We'll just send some static data. Return user we instantiate it separately. Last time I ran into a problem. I haven't looked in. I did not get a chance to look into it yet. So constant user1 equals return user1, and we use initialize the properties of user1, id1 and user1 dot username to user1. Complaining about something, declaration of it or a statement expected. Strongly type that. That is not what the error is trying to tell me, but we needed to take care of it anyway. User1. Oops. Okay. I'm writing a method, so it expects these parentheses. Now everything is set. I'm returning the user. Now that service is ready to be consumed, or in other words, it's ready to be injected and used. So that's what consume boils down to with Angular. So for that, we need that service to be injected in the component 2. but we have already provided it in the root, and that means across application. But still, if you want to use it in the component level, we have to inject it. So quickly, the component decorator also provides something called providers. So if we hadn't provided it in the root over here, or via a shortcut provided in root, we can get it provided at the component level. So what is the difference? So not this component. The difference is if we provide it at the module level, we get a single instance across that module. Or if it is a root module, we get a single instance across the application. What does that mean? Okay, to demonstrate that, let me go back to that user service, and then instead of providing or instantiating a user right when the method is called, let me have it as a property. So first type user1 is new user, or I'll just use the object literal syntax. ID is 1 and username is username. And I'll just return that user from the method. I need this word over here. So right now, if I instantiate this user service, then I'll get user1 by default. But if that instantiation or if that instance is updated, then the user1 will have a different state, right? So let's say if I do user service and user service 1 equals to new user service, I could easily do this. Constant user service 2 equals to new user service. If I update the user service once, user1, let's say username, us1, user1, something like this, the us2 instance of user service will not get affected because this is a separate instance. But with Angular dependency injection, if we provide it at the module level, we get only one instance. I mean, Angular takes care of the things behind the scene to provide us just one instance. So if I get that instance via dependency injection and I update the username, that gets reflected across for all the consumers of that particular service. So when we inject dependency in Angular at the module level or the root level, we get a single instance of that service. But if we inject it at the component level using its providers array, then for each instantiation of that component, we get a new instance of that service. Okay, so that is not, the pattern that is followed by Angular developers to have it declared at the components providers level. Rather, wherever I have developed, I have done it at the module level or application level, and I haven't seen anybody else doing component level. There might be cases where it makes sense, and I'm pretty sure of that. But let's stick with the declaring the providers at the module level. or app level rather than here, but I just wanted to demonstrate that it can be done at this level too. If it is not clear, please go ahead and ask me any question on this. We'll come back to that, or we'll discuss it again and then go back to our agenda. So now this service is available at the module level. All we need is to inject it in our component and start using it. So private user service, user service. So this is the way to inject a dependency. That's all it is. We just declare its access modifier. This means it's only accessible within this component. We can make it public too, but if need be, but right now most likely our need is only private, so we'll just use the word private and we give it a name of that instance of that provided by Angular dependency injection, and which will be we give it a type. So my user service is ready to be consumed. We just have a property of current user of type user, which is not instantiated yet. We call the service and set our current user from whatever is returned by the service. User service dot get user. By default, it looks like it's public. I don't want to be public. I want it consumed via this method rather than directly via the property. So let me see if it still, yeah, right. Earlier it was suggesting get current user as well as user one. Here I'll rename this current user as well. Rename symbol. Instead of just typing and typing the new name and copying, pasting all over the places where it is used, we can use something called refactoring of the code. And right click, select the word, right click and say rename symbol. Or the other refactoring come under refactor. We'll see if there is an opportunity to go over these later on, but right now let's just rename symbol, and this rename symbol will take care of all the instances where this particular symbol is used. So it's using the generic word called symbol to which basically means it's just not a rename of a particular property. It can be a rename of a method name, it can be a rename of a class, it can be a rename of whatever could be renamed. So let's keep on moving. Current user, so it's taken care of. Oops. Now we'll use this current user property, and we'll have also a property called is logged in. Defaulting to false. The navbar component will display this tag, a tag if is not logged in. If the user, if nobody is logged in, right? That it makes sense, right? If nobody is logged in, then we are asking them to log in. If somebody is logged in, instead of anchor tag, will display current users dot username. Span doesn't have a href, so we'll get rid of it. So let's look how our page looks. Ah, so when I was generating those classes and Angular stuff or services, I stopped the ngserve. I need to go back and restart it. That's why it did not reflect anything. While it starts, let's utilize that time to have a look at something else. So I'm going to angular.io. Right now, what we have is on all our pages, we are just seeing this local host and something. Normally, it's a good idea to have a title on the page, on each page. So services need not be just generated by the application. We can consume third-party services too. So title service, something like that. Okay. Angular provides us with a title service. Let's see and figure it out and consume. Yeah. Saying it that setting the title on the component level doesn't work because it's a single page application, and this provides a thing. Angular provides us with a title service which will consume, and it will you can search for services and Angular if they provide other services too, and wherever they provide a service they will have uh, read me about how to go about it and consume it. It's a complete solution. And we just inject it. Okay, let me see if I got it, and then let's see if that will work. So it's asking me to go to app module, and in the providers title, where did it import it from? Yeah, platform browser, which looks good. And let me go to the home component. Then private title service. I think that's what it is. Title service title from platform browser, and just set the title from here. We need to do this on each component or on each route where we want the title displayed. So navbar is not a standalone component, it goes as a navigation bar on each page. So I don't think it can, even if we try, then most likely it will be overridden by the consuming component. Anyway, I will not worry about what works, tips and tricks at this point of time. So let's go to products and then consume the first, inject the service, private title service title, and then on init the first thing we'll do is set the title products. Okay, our ngserve is ready for us to have a look at what we were trying to do earlier. We were trying to inject a service and log in our current user. Login have nothing. I don't know why it did not change to username. Let's go and try to figure that out. we have current user. I'm saying current user dot username. If user is not logged in, okay, we did not update the property of logged in, right? So we need to, as soon as we get the current user, if this dot current user, that means we are checking if the current user is null or not. If it is, then is logged in is still false. So set the is logged in property, but first check if the current user is null or not. If the user is null, then logged in property is false. Else, logged in property is true. So now the logged in is set. It will, hopefully it's true now. Oops, it's not. This is logged in. Quickly look at how to debug something. This is a good opportunity probably to demonstrate how to debug if something goes wrong. So let's say you are not using Visual Studio Debugger, Visual Studio Code Debugger, or you are using a different editor which doesn't have debugging capability into Angular, then what we do is we go to the source. And last time we have seen while with the demonstration of lazy loading a module, how to go to the source and check if the loaded module is actually getting loaded or not. So we go to the source and then we go the exact line where we are expecting something to work but it is not working. So let me reload this. Set a breakpoint. Right now it stopped at this breakpoint and we see current user. Yep, there is a current user. Okay. We go step over to the next line using this icon, and now we see current logged in is still false, or is logged in is still false. Yep. So that is a little logical mistake that was a little bit obvious at that point of time, but I did not express it because I just wanted to use this opportunity to show how to debug using any browsers, or in this case Chrome's developer tools. So you might have seen me just right clicking it and inspecting the code, but this doesn't display. The word used here is for inspection of DOM elements. So what I mean by that is clicking this particular icon with the arrow and then inspecting the DOM or a particular element in the DOM. So if I click on it or even hover over some element, it displays the information about the DOM, or basically I'm inspecting the DOM or an element in the DOM. If I click on it, it will display the DOM in the elements tab. But the more meaningful way, a more meaningful term for these tools come from over this menu, which is more tools, developer tools. Basically they open the same, so but a different tab is probably opened by default, but these are the developer tools that we can utilize to debug any website, or to not only debug but inspect, or there are a lot of things over there to inspect the network, to figure out the performance, to analyze the performance, to monitor the performance, to monitor the memory usage, to monitor the application itself. But anyway, these are called developer tools and they are available in any browser. All the modern browsers provide them. Anyway, that's one way to debug. We'll see how to debug in through Visual Studio Code itself, because Visual Studio Code also provides the same similar debugging capability. So basically, my statement is wrong over here. If the object is null, if an object is provided in an if condition, it evaluates if it is null or undefined as false, and if it is defined as true. So my statement is little faulty over here. It should be true if it is not null, and if it is false if it is not null. So it should have been the opposite rather than. This is a shortcut of writing if if this dot is logged in. Sorry, if current user, then this dot is logged in is true, else this dot is logged in. So this one line is shortcut for these four lines, and this is shortcut in JavaScript and many languages. This is shortcut for checking if it is not null. You don't have to write these lines. This works. I mean, this kind of syntax works if there is like only true and false. If there are more than that, like let's say if we have if and then else if and some condition and then else if and one more condition, this one liner would not work. So it has its use cases. Anyway, right now this is fixed, and if you go to the browser, we should be seeing. Instead of setting the property, I'm probably setting a string. So let's go over there and try to fix it. So this should be a interpolation rather than just text. Should have been a user1 instead of just plain username text. So something that indicates that this is user1. Normally, probably we have seen on the websites, they do something like this. Welcome. Okay, something like that. So now that that is taken care of, and we saw how to create a service, and we saw how to consume a service. So let's look at actually the title service that we had consumed earlier. Did it have any effect? See, we have a product as a title. If we go to the home page, and then we have home as a title instead of app one. So we consumed a third-party service. In this case, third party was Angular, and we created a user service and we consumed it. Yes, we can debug in Visual Studio Code. Actually, let me go ahead and have a quick demo on that. Navbar component. Let me go to the home component and try to debug that. So FS will set a breakpoint over here and let Visual Studio Code do its magic of stopping on a breakpoint right over here. So run and start debugging, or even if you don't remember this command, F5 is kind of default debugging command across all Visual Studio environment or Visual Studio related IDEs. Visual Studio 2019, Visual Studio, all the versions, Visual Studio Code, anything to execute, you just press F5 in anything any tools provided by Microsoft. So let's go with start debugging. And it's asked me what debugging environment do I want to use. Let's go with Chrome. So basically it created a settings file for us called launch.json, and it will store it somewhere for it to remember next time. What do you do? So it came over here and stopped. We can use these windows over here for our debugging purposes. We demonstrate how to use a watch. So in watch window, we can just type in a variable and have a look at the value of those variables, or make a function calls or method calls and then see what they return. Or we can use this variables window to have a look at or monitor the local values. So right now there is nothing local to this. Probably this was a bad example, but if one of the properties that is exposed across JavaScript and TypeScript application is this, or any other application, maybe C# too, is this. So right now we don't have any variables except this. So let's observe this, and then this refers to the instance of this particular class. So it has title service exposed, and it doesn't have any public properties. So uh, it's not very meaningful breakpoint. Let me have another breakpoint and probably navbar component. But anyway, I had this breakpoint set up so that I can demonstrate the watch window or what we can do over here. So this dot, we'll use the title service to actually get the current title before updating to our new one. So title service dot get title. Of course, it shouldn't expect any parameters. Our current title is app1, and once we go over that line, now it is home. The control is still stopped over here, and let's continue with that control and then get it done with. So this is how we can use Visual Studio Code for our debugging purposes. So this provides a lot of functionality. So again, practice will make you much better at it. Keep practicing with that too. If you have any questions, just ask me, inshallah. So we'll just stop over here and then get back to our agenda. Now we have consumed a third-party service. We created a simple service called user service to track our logged in user, and then we consume that service in one of our components. The next thing we'll do is, in our products component, the product listing was hard coded into the component itself. But what is the duty of a component? Just like there are duties of a service, or the related and reusable encapsulation of some methods is a service, right? And it's not supposed to contain uh, a different functionality. For example, it's not supposed to be in charge of displaying the UI. What component is? The component's duty is to have a tight coupling between its template and its properties. And it's not supposed to deal with the data at all. It's supposed to deal with the data that are coming in as properties, but not actually deal with fetching the data. So right now, in a way, it's taking care of fetching the data, which is hard coded as one of its properties. So let's take that off and use a service to get those products. For that, we'll have to generate product service first, and that gives us an opportunity to actually generate a service at the product management module level rather than the application level. The application is not concerned because we separated out the product related stuff into a module. So it makes sense to have our service at that module itself rather than any place else. So let's, if I run the command of ng generate service, okay, we had a separate services folder, and probably we need a separate services folder under project management module too. So that will be components slash product management slash services slash, just let's keep it simple and call it product service, and let's see what it does with the dry run flag. So it created a service at the path I was expecting it to. It looks fine to me. So I'll just go ahead and run without the dry run flag. Because ngserve takes some time, let me just start it right away. If need be, we'll stop and then we'll carry on. But if there was no need, then we would be ready with it running. So we have the new product service. This is provided in root. I think the child is the right word. But I'll figure it out and come back to it. But basically, if I comment it, it's complaining. I think it's complaining because it cannot have a comment in there. Let me take that out. Oh, that's another. Okay. I'll go to the product management module and provide this service over there, and I'll figure this out what other values it accepts so that it gets restrained or constrained to the module rather than all over the application. Providers. So when you provide something over here, it means Angular will take care of providing a single instance across this module, across the components of this module. So now that is ready. Now did I pivot this window? I don't know, maybe let's not worry about that anyway. Now this is ready, I believe, to be consumed, and then let's expose a method over here called get products, which will return products, array of products. We are strongly typing its return type because we haven't imported the class. It's showing us the red squiggly. I'll just use the Visual Studio provided shortcut to import the product, otherwise I would have to type all of that over there. Okay, so we'll just copy all these products from here and return those products. Return products. So now the service has a property called products, and that product property we are populating and returning. Okay, it's still complaining about something. Let's have a look at what that is. Cannot find. Okay, this should be this dot products because it's a property of the class rather than declaration right in the method. So now that is done, and the product components now should consume that product rather than the that products array by calling the service rather than building its own. So first we'll have to inject. Wait, product service. And now this dot product service dot get products. Okay, we took out the definition from here, so this definition should have stayed. I did Control X instead of Control C. That's why this definition is not here anymore. I can just undo it, I guess, and get back to exact definition what I had. So I'll copy this and then redo everything and then just copy what I need or paste what I copied earlier. Now this is ready. Let's see if the products are getting loaded just fine. Because all we did is like we placed the initialization of products in the service rather than the component. We just moved it from here to there. Let's say if the functionality still works. Now del is on top, so everything works. Now we have an encapsulated functionality. Now any component that needs products then just can query the product service and get the products, or it can get a single product. How to get a single product? Get product. We just have to expose that functionality. It should accept something on ID, which will be of type number. We are strongly tapping anything is a very good idea. And then this method will return a product, a single product. So if product doesn't exist, first look, this method will just make sure that it's doing the right thing in terms of code. So the right thing would be check if the products exist or it's not null. If they exist, then we'll do something. We'll somehow get to the product with that ID as an input. Let's take care of the else case first. If the product doesn't exist, return null. So this was simple, so I took care of it first. And if the product, we have an array, we have products in the array, then we'll just say if this dot products dot find. Find will take an arrow function. That's Now this find is different than C# find, so let me use something called filter, which is fine too. Filter all the products and filter on what? Check for ID. With the ID that was provided as an input to this method. I think find will work too. Just quit. Okay, find should work. So just return this. If it finds one, If it exists, then it will find the actual product. If it doesn't exist, the find will return a null. So null will be returned anyway. So basically, we have encapsulated product related fetching of products or individual product into a service, which could be used across components now. The concept is very simple. We just generate a service and provide it either at the root level or at the module level or at the feature module level. Providing it in the root module is same as providing at an app level. So it's available across the application. If it is provided in a feature module, the components in that module will be able to inject and use that service. But the products in a real world application would not be hard coded even in the service, right? They would be entered in a database management system or some kind of data store, and we will have to fetch from that data store. And that for that purposes, we'll have to make some API calls to some service that would provide us with those products. For example, let's say uh, Amazon.com. So the developers of the Amazon.com website will be writing, let's say, the Angular code to actually display their website. So they will parallelly have an effort of having a web service or a REST API service or some kind of service or a microservice or whatever it can be termed as, that would actually provide the data to all their UI applications. And one of the UI applications might be an Angular application. So that Angular application should be able to call those web services and get the data from those web services. For that purposes, Angular provides something called HTTP. So in the real world, HTTP client in the real world, that call would look like something like this. So product service will need an HTTP client. So let me just write that out. Private HTTP client. For me to be able to use that HTTP client, I will have to go to the project manager module and import that module first. For some reason, Visual Studio is not able to figure out where this resides. If I remember right, then we'll have no difficulty in importing this Angular slash. Yeah. And this HTTP client will reside at. So this is HTTP client module, and in that module, we are utilizing a service called HTTP client. This has the methods to actually query some web service. So we have methods related to the REST API, which we can utilize to query or update or delete something, or call the delete methods of that web service, provided that web service provides us with those methods. So right now, let's try to just assume a web service provided at some URL and try to get that. So this is how it would look like. We need to provide a URL, something like HTTP web services.amazon.com/product, right? that method is exposed, if that method is exposed at this URL, we'll just get those products. And the difference is the calls from the HTTP client, for example, get in this case, they don't return an array of products. They will return an observable of array of products, which we'll talk about in great detail in the next session. And that is very important to actually get the concept of observable so that we can subscribe to the observable and then consume that observable. So let's stop here and then we'll try to separate this out. We'll try to mimic the observableness of our instance of the products returned from these web services. To mimic is very easy, but we'll go over the concept first and then try to mimic. So any questions on what we covered today? So this will get deferred to our next session. So I'll make a note and then update later. So let's look at the differences, the modifications that we made to our project, and then go over these so that we can recap what we did today. So with launch.json, we just tried to debug by using Visual Studio Code. And we consume the title service, a third-party service, so that we could update the titles on our components, which are basically for the end users a different page, so they deserve their own title. We took care of that, and we tidied up our nav bar to have actual links and to display the actual logged in user, and we try to mimic a current user. There is much to do with that nav bar, but for our purposes that should be good enough. We created a couple of services, one for users or current user, and one for the products. And we consume both of them. We move the code, the hard-coded products from a component to the service, and we'll take care of how to mimic getting it from HTTP client calls in our next session. We have about five minutes. Let me see if we can cover something called nav bar styling, or show the active link on our nav bar. Let me close everything else. So if you have any question, please feel free. We can just stop right over there and try to get it answered quickly. Otherwise, let's keep on moving with this one. So right now what we have is, we have products, we have home. Looking at the URL, we can figure out that, okay, the current displayed page is the products page, not the home page. But how about maybe you have seen that functionality that the current active page or the active link gets highlighted. So for that, let's define a couple of classes. In navbar component CSS file. Over here, what we have is a tag, and if whatever styles we define in this particular CSS file will be scoped to this particular component, and it will not flow over to other components. So this is kind of scoping the styles within the component. So what we have here. first thing is instead of href, we'll go for router link. Even before options, let me take care of router link active class. Basically, what I'm doing here is when I'm just telling Angular, this is Angular specific attribute. I'm telling Angular, if this is active, then apply this class to this particular router link or a tag. So for that to be discernible enough, will have to define this class. So we'll simply just maybe change the background color to teal, and the color of the text to maybe white. So you can see that because this route is currently active, it's getting that class. So we need to define the same for the other link too. So the home is active, the product is active. So it's very simple. We need to set couple of properties. One is instead of href, we can just go for router link, and when it is active, apply this class. It's not so great choice of colors, but it demonstrates what we are trying to understand. So there is one more property called router link options. Basically, it has a property underneath it. We need to provide it with an object with the property of if the route is exact. If you want to apply this highlighting, the active highlighting, only if the route is exact. What it means is, like, for example, we might have a links for home and products, but we might not have a link for an individual product. What it means, I mean, the reasoning behind is we don't know the ID of the product. So which would it refer to? So we'll not have that kind of link. It doesn't make any sense. But when we actually traverse to a particular product and it comes under this products menu, then the product link, in other words, is active. So this will be active. That is the default behavior, and if you don't want it, then we can say, okay, highlight this link only if the product, only if the route matches exactly. So if the route matches, if the route is something like this, the products will not get highlighted. Actually, because we don't have that route yet, it went back to the default route, which is empty route, which is home component. It should have gone to the home. I don't know why it didn't, but anyway, we'll figure that out. So that's what it means. So right now, if there was a product route /1, this products link would still be highlighted unless we tell it to not highlighted using the router link options, and this, it goes something like this: router link options equals exact. So do it only if it is exactly, only if the route exactly matches, then highlight it, otherwise don't. So we'll skip that anyway, just FYI. It's pretty simple concept again. Router link, where to go on this click. And if it is active, if the route, this particular route is active, what class to use, or what CSS class, what styling class to use in that case. All right, I think we are a minute over. I'll stop here, and hopefully you have enjoyed it. Keep practicing and keep asking questions. Don't think of any question as silly or simple enough to be embarrassed. It's better to be embarrassed right now rather than later. All right, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.